Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Robert Phoenix here, broadcasting to you live from the Fritz, Fredericksburg, Texas. Just making sure that my G's are all in place. I had to up my G level so that I could do an efficiently streaming broadcast to you today. How was everyone? We got Judy in the house. There's J&P Love. There's Mr. Ian Barber. Good morning to you, one and all. How was everybody? Hope everybody had a pleasant Monday. The gap in between the Sunday night show and the Tuesday show. There's a lot to talk about today. We got a lot to cover, boys and girls. We got a lot to cover. Uh, Speaking of cover, I told him this morning. He was sitting over there on his little cat throne, and I said, your adoring public is going to want to see you. So here he is. Come on, you can do it. Let's go. Jasper the Astro Cat. He's in the house. There he is. Should we do the cat cam? Let's do cat cam. There he is. Jasper, look around here. There he is. There's Jasper the Astro Cat. Yeah. See, saying hi to everybody. He knows. Jasper has an unerring sense of timing, don't you? Don't you? Yeah. How is everybody? Are we managing to keep our spirits up? Our immunity up and our spirits up? It's very important. Very, 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 very important during these tricky and challenging times that we are able to do both. And that's a group effort. It's an individual effort. It's also a community effort as well, that we can be able to make sure that we can keep both our spiritual immunity and our physical immunity to the highest levels possible. And maybe during the show at some point we can get into that, some of the things I've been finding out about that can help keep you healthy, period, end of story. Besides the coronavirus and the imminent threat of any other virus that we theoretically are dealing with, some people don't believe that viruses exist, that they're a form of a complex series of immune breakdowns. Yep. How's your immunity, Jasper? Is it good? Jasper's immunity is pretty good. He's a pretty healthy guy. Let's see who else is in the chat today, in Chatlandia. We got Mary. Hi, Mary. There's my man, Steve. Steve, we'll be talking to you later today. There's Isla. There is Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. And Paula. Hi, Paula. Thanks for liking my tweets over on Twitter, Paula. Appreciate that. There's Beverly Wise. Hi, Beverly. Nice to see you. There's my man, DJ Mike. What's going on, Michael? There's JMP. Just listen to Crow 777 and his guess on that very thing. Yes. Taking colloidal silver, elderberry, liposomal vitamin C, and copper. Isla, you're all over it. There's Mojo Mama. What's going on, Joe? Nice to see you. So really interesting. We're gonna start to get into this, and I'm going to give you some of the latest Corona updates and some of my thoughts around what's happening. So one of the things that and I wasn't really aware of, I wasn't even really aware that Jim Baker, the former disgraced pastor minister, is still in the game, but apparently he is, and apparently he still ministers to people. And Jim Baker has been touting colloidal silver. And I think probably one of the more potent forms of colloidal silver, he's been telling people that this is a way to stay healthy. I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. I don't have a problem with, the alternative means of staying healthy and fit. And I think colloidal silver is a real weapon. So it's a total weapon. And I've been doing off and on some nebulizing of colloidal silver and some other little goodies. And I had some issues with my lungs a couple of days ago, and I nebulized twice that day. Lung issues gone. See you later. Adios. Now, what was really interesting about the same with Jim Baker is that all of a sudden now, the FDA, perhaps the AMA, and any other A's have been coming down on him for advertising false medical claims. They've been telling him to stop talking about colloidal silver. That doesn't surprise me. If you talk about these things, you have to talk about them in a way that does not necessarily state that they are a cure. I'm not telling you that colloidal silver is going to cure everything. I'm just telling you that I use it and I have found it to be effective. Your ability or your experience of colloidal silver really should be your own if you do choose to take it. That's all I'm saying. So Jim Baker apparently crossed some kind of line, and the powers that be are slapping him on the wrist. Well, that doesn't surprise me. That really doesn't surprise me. I was listening to this talk show out of San Antonio yesterday, and it's got to be one of the worst. Like, they have these guys. KTSA has local, quote unquote, conservative talk radio, and some of the guys on that channel are actually pretty good. I don't agree with them on certain things, nor would they agree with me on certain things, but by and large, I find that they're pretty good. Some of them have actually pretty informed takes. But they have this one show where these three guys get on the air, and unlike the other shows, there's no call-in to that show. And it seems to be like these guys are kind of like ex-newspaper guys or newspaper guys. They're very slick. They're very kind of chatty, smarmy. It's sort of like the ESPN banter of talk radio. And what they did is none of them had ever heard of colloidal silver, by the way. None of them. So they started ripping Jim Baker, and they started ripping colloidal, and they're like, ha, 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 this, ha, ha, that. And it was like, these are the guys that are theoretically informing the public, and they don't even know about alternative health or alternative nutrition, alternative supplements. They have known nothing about it, and yes, they're just going to summarily pass judgment and then make fun of Jim Baker because he has a checkered past. And this is how, unfortunately, the world works in a lot of ways. That you get, quote unquote, informed people, and they're not informed at all. They're more than willing to dive in and make a character assassination on somebody who had a bad time in their past and had to deal with some of the things that us as humans have to deal with. Bad choices, letting people into our lives that aren't good for ourselves, delusion, power trips, ego, all that stuff. None of us are immune to it. And even a guy like Jim Baker and his ministry and that whole thing, he went through it. And he's on the other side of it. And I think he has actually probably a deep-seated need to help people. Now, whether that's a pathology or not, I don't know. I'm not going to stand in judgment here. But it's just interesting to see how the dissemination of information becomes polluted and toxic in a lot of ways. And of course, nobody could call in. Nobody could call in to refute them or tell them about how effective colloidal silver has shown to be in certain trials, et cetera, et cetera. They're just going to think it's wacko, and Jim Baker is a former disgraced minister and just a creep. And that's how the world works. And that's the world in, WORLD, all uppercase, for all you people at home that are looking at the uppercase categorization of things. So why don't we get into where we are with some of the corona stuff and what I am beginning to now piece together here. Like there's the big picture, I think, is starting to coalesce. We're starting to see this bigger picture taking place. And we're headed into what I would call the gambit. We're headed to the gambit moment, which is going to be very interesting. And the gambit moment is going to be one that's going to test a lot of people's nerves, and it's going to test a lot of people's faith. And this is where the proverbial rubber hits the road. All right. This is going to be a very interesting time that we're headed towards. So let's get into some of the latest updates here. Jasper, if you don't mind, I'm going to do something here. All right. So the big news is what's happening with some of the colleges, some of the major universities. Now, you have to understand also that the universities are these bastions of liberal thoughts, and not just liberal thought, but indoctrination. The modern university has become the indoctrination center that Bill Ayers and the rest of the Weather Underground dreamt of back in the 1960s. I've stated this on many occasions, and not all universities are like this. Let me be clear. I'm sure there are some universities that are less involved in indoctrination and reorientation than others, but the facts are facts. Kids go in one way and they come out another way. And this is just what's happened and is happening. And they've been pumping out young social Marxists, social Democrats for years now, for years. And if you have a dissenting or differing point of view, you are number one ostracized. Number two, you will be at risk of not getting the right or proper grade. If you know anything about Andrew Breitbart, this is where Andrew Breitbart kind of got his start. He went to the University of Tulane and he began to have differing opinions about social ideas and social order than his professors. And he used to take them on. And that's where he ostensibly got into trouble. Breitbart was an Aquarian, by the way. You know, so when I talk about Aquarians, and I don't always talk about them in a pejorative sense, but they are definitely on the rebellious side. And so in that environment, in an environment that was promoting kind of social Marxist theory, which is what they do in the modern university, Breitbart took the other side. He took the contrarian point of view, which is what Aquarians do. Aquarian rhymes with contrarian. And that's how Andrew Breitbart's political and journalistic career began in the University of Tulane when he found out that his point of view was not readily accepted and he needed to argue for it. Right. So this is what happened with him. So let's just bring this headline into where we are today. So here we go. This is Ohio State suspends in-person classes until March 30th due to coronavirus. There we go. Ohio State University suspended all in-person classes until at least March 31st due to the outbreak of the coronavirus. Now, what's interesting, I'm pretty sure that Ohio State has a basketball team that will likely play in March Madness. And so we're going to have to drill down and see what's going to happen with March Madness coming up here, if that's going to be affected by this so-called coronavirus. The school is shifting all face-to-face instruction and lectures, discussion, sections, seminars, and other similar classroom settings to online instruction. Right there. You see that? I know it's really interesting. I thought to myself yesterday, man, I bet you Zoom would be a really good stock to buy in on because of all the online stuff and all the face-to-face stuff that you'll have to use an application like Zoom for. So I checked out Zoom stock price yesterday. And at the beginning of the year, Zoom was right around $68 a share. So in January 1st, Zoom was at $68 a share. Yesterday, it was at 110. Zoom has almost doubled its stock price in the brief span of 60 days. Imagine that. Wow. Ha. You think they're going to be profiting off of this crisis? Absolutely. Absolutely. And there are going to be other businesses that are going to be profiting off this crisis. So if you're in the stock market or like to play those things, you need to kind of get a handle on, even if it's short term. Now, there are people obviously that are shorting the market and making a ton of money right now. We've seen that. That's happening. So Ohio State is down, but they're not the only university that's down. Harvard. Harvard moves classes online, asks students not to return after spring break in response to coronavirus. Harvard prohibits all official international travel and non essential domestic air travel, strongly discourages large events. Harvard cancels admitted students weekend amid coronavirus fears. So this is starting to really take off in a big way. All Harvard courses will move to remote instruction beginning March 23rd as a result of a growing global coronavirus outbreak. University professor Lawrence S. Bacow announced in an email Thursday morning the university will also ask students not to return from spring break. The move follows both similar decisions at other Ivy League universities in recent days and rapid changes on campus. As the number of confirmed coronavirus cases in Massachusetts rises, events and venues have closed, travel restrictions have tightened, and university affiliates have questioned how the disease will affect life and work on campus. So Corona now has a momentum. Santa Clara County, which is one of the areas in California that has been part of the Corona narrative since it started. Some of the first cases were reported in Santa Clara County. They have basically said that gatherings of 1,000 and more have to be suspended. Well, that's just really fucking stupid. I mean, it's just really stupid. Where do they come up with 1,000? Do they sit down and say, well, geez, let's look at the numbers around this? Well, we figured that somewhere between 1,000 and below, there's a lesser chance of the coronavirus getting spread around. 1,001, we really enter into a different zone. It's just an arbitrary number, and it's stupid. It's really stupid. You either let people congregate or you have no congregation. Period. End of story. That's how that works. That's how it works. You let them congregate or have no congregation. 1,000 or less. It's just stupid. All it takes are one or two people. Somewhere in that 1,000 and less category, you just need a couple of people to theoretically have the coronavirus, and boom. And by the way, I wouldn't be surprised if we all have it at this point. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's not just theoretically coming from Wuhan or Italy or whatever, but that it's aerosolized. It's in the air. We've been dealing with chemtrails, geoengineering for decades now, and we've been having to process whatever is in the skies 24/7 and having a long-term wrecking ball effect to our immunity. Bottom line of the story. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's not just coming out of a freaking lab in Wuhan, China. But that's another discussion. I'm just trying to give you some updates here. So what's going on? Because this is what we do. Try to stay on top of things. So now we're seeing closures of schools and the spring break. Well, what are the kids going to do during spring break? They're going to go run. They're going to go to the other place. Hey, great. We don't have to go to school. We don't have to go back to school. Why don't we stay out on spring break for a while? If I was that age, I'd probably do the same thing too. And we're not going to go back. Why go back? There's no classes. Oh yeah, I can catch this online. Yeah, not a big deal. I'll watch the replay. I'll take the replay in. It doesn't seem like kids are really at risk though now, does it? Because most of the people that have been reported to have corona seem to be older. And certainly the fatalities seem to be with older people as well. At least that's what the statistics theoretically are saying. And there's a real major tug of war going on now. And this is where we get into some of the deeper corona aspects and really because when these things happen, it's not just one thing. It's like multiple things. I'm wondering how much I should share today. Maybe I'll share it for another time. It's an anecdote from yesterday. It's an anecdote, and I'll share it tomorrow. And it's about how I think painfully ignorant and uninformed the general public is, and even people that are supposedly smart and bright and intelligent, how uninformed they are. Tragically uninformed, in my opinion. I'll share that tomorrow. Not today. I'll try to stay on point today. Anyway, so whenever we see an event, there's always going to be a number of different things that can happen during an event, and the fallouts of what that event could be. So fill in blank event. Who profits from said event? What are the potential outcomes from said event? Why did said events happen in the first place? I'll give you an example. Let's go back to the kid in South Carolina who supposedly shot up the church in South Carolina. Dylan Roof. Remember him? The kid was an absolute doofus. Didn't even look like he was somebody who could manage to work at a 7-Eleven, let alone carry out a major assault on a black church. And it's a black church, okay? So in that event with Dylan Roof, theoretically, what occurred? Well, first of all, there was this idea that a kid could get a firearm. That's number one. It was a gun event. Number two, it happened in a black church, so there was a racial component to it. Number three, it happened in the South. It didn't happen in the North. So that triples down on the racial component of it. And then what did we see in the aftermath of that? We saw a lot of the statuary being taken down in the South. So there's a lot of different things that are happening there, right? It reaffirms that Americans are racist. It reaffirms that there's a gun issue. It reaffirms that we have troubled youth. I mean, all these things take place. It reaffirms sort of a victim class, right? I mean, all these things take place. Now, you may think, well, that happened or it didn't happen. Doesn't matter whether it happened or didn't happen. All those things are a fallout of that event. So there's more than one thing going on when these things occur, right? Look at 9/11, which is the big kahuna. You've got at least a dozen things going on with 9/11, not just one thing. We get the Patriot Act. We get xenophobia. We get the war in Islam. We get the incursion into Iraq, the incursion into Afghanistan. We get major redistribution of the population in the Middle East and North Africa as a result of basically 20 years worth of ongoing war and the displacement of all these other people. Now they're going to Europe and wherever, right? So there's all these things that happen and go on as a result. It's not just one thing. So Corona falls into a very similar category, a very similar bucket. So from the big picture now, what are we dealing with? See you later, Jasper. Thanks for being on the show today. He might be back. He sometimes he taps out, then he comes back. I've seen him do it before. It's not the first time. See you later, buddy. He's got to make the jump down. You can do it. There you go. Good job. He's getting a little old. He's an athletic cat, though. You know, I have this cat condo, and when he was younger, he could jump all the way from the floor to the top of the cat condo, like in one leap. It's like, holy shit. He's like a super cat. All right, Jasper. He's going to go back to bed. He's going to nap. He's a senior now. He gets the senior discount down at Denny's. Okay. So what the hell is going on here? If we're talking about multiple events, which I do believe is happening, what is part of the, how do we say this? The deeper narrative, the subtext. You know, we can make all these connections, right? The global economy, the shutdown, countries declaring bankruptcy. Oh, by the way, Italy, which is in total lockdown, although it is allowing people to travel to the United States. Go figure. Um, Italy has suspended mortgage payments. How about that? So if you are sick in Italy and you can't make your mortgage payment, the Italian government said, don't worry about it. You're not going to be penalized for that. Not bad, right? Would that ever happen in this country? It's doubtful. Somebody might send me an email and say, see, this is what Democrats do. They're able to do things like that. They're able to take care of their people. You know, rah, rah, rah. Like, okay, whatever. Um, so I'm not even going to go there. So what's really going on here? What is going on? I'm going to show you. All right. Okay. Let me get to this one point. But before I get there, I just have to complete my thought because I got sidetracked by something. Um, we could look at the global picture, right? We could see that there can be global economic shutdowns. Markets are and have been tanking, not just here in the US, but also in other countries around the world as a result of this, right? We're seeing now this kind of uniform um, set of behaviors. You know, Harvard being locked down, Ohio State being locked down, Italy being locked down. You know, these little lockdowns are starting to now come into picture and come into place. And there are people who are like, well, this is nothing. Coronavirus is nothing. It's nothing but a fear bug. And I think there's some truth to that, by the way. I don't rule that out at all. You know, but I think there is a something there because there are people that have been and are sick, and they're very sick. And you don't want to get it. Whatever this thing is, you don't want to get it. And you certainly don't want to get the you know what I would consider the more fatal version, especially if you're over a certain age. You just don't want to get it. Period. End of story. But how extreme do we want to be around this? Do we want to completely limit all public access? I'm not sure. We're in uncharted territory. I do know that you got to take care of yourself. And I do know that you probably don't want to mingle with a bunch of crowds anyway. And that's not what I do by and large. I live in a small town. And it's like, you know, downtown Fredericksburg is just Touristville. I don't really hang out there. It's just my lifestyle. I spend most of my time here or working out or doing something else, but it's not commingling with a bunch of people. I don't have to go to a mall in order to be entertained. I don't even have to go to a movie theater to be entertained. It's not part of my daily habituation. You know, but for some people, they have to. They have to continue these rituals. So we're seeing this lockdown begin to take place at a global level. Okay, and here in this country, the Democrats, and this is where I'm going to kind of get into this thing. The Democrats have excoriated Trump. I mean, excoriated him for his response around the coronavirus. And what do you now, if you're the president of the United States, what are you supposed to do? Really, what are you supposed to do? You're in uncharted territory here. You're in an election cycle, and you're essentially going to be paired up with the village idiot. And let's be honest about Joe Biden. He's reached this point where he's approaching village idiot status. It is one of the most um, cruel things I've seen in a long time to have this man go out there and have his family watch him, to have his wife and his sister on stage watch him be a blithering idiot. I mean, it's almost like they're there as caretakers for him. And do you think that the Democratic Party wants to have Trump uh, debate Joe Biden? You think that's what they want? That would be like this would be very similar to the Poles fighting the Germans on horseback in World War II. And the Germans rolled into Poland with panzers, and the Poles were on horses. That's what the equivalence would be. They don't want that at all because they know that Biden would literally get massacred. Absolutely. Oh, by the way, there seems to be some very disparate info coming out of Massachusetts with the exit polls around the primary that was held on Super Tuesday, the exit polls strongly suggest that Bernie Sanders was the winner, and that the results for Joe Biden are, how do I say this? They're not commensurate or equivalent with the exit polls. So there's some talk that the Democrats somehow rigged the primary so that Joe Biden would come out on top. Imagine that. Imagine that. How about that? Isn't that just shocking news that that might actually be the case? And look, I'm not saying it's a Democratic technique or strategy. Elections are rigged, whether it's the right or the left. And we've seen this throughout recent memory, recent history. Remember Florida? Remember the hanging chads? Yep. Mm-hmm. What about John Kerry versus George Bush? The two skull and boners. Rigging an election happens all the time. But now it's starting to come out that there's a very good chance that these results were tampered with. Imagine that. So they're very dead set on getting Joe Biden in the race. Now we know that not just the race, they want to get him all the way to an election, but they don't want Joe Biden to have any kind of contact with Trump. None whatsoever. They don't want any debates. They don't want any face-to-face kinds of confrontations. So they're going to control not just the narrative, but the social landscape. Now, whether or not the Democrats or the progressives were involved in the launching of the coronavirus, I'm not making that accusation, by the way. But I am connecting dots, and it's pretty clear that they're going to use coronavirus in order to begin to control the narrative around this upcoming election. And I'll give you some examples here. First of all, let's look at this. Now, Trump was, again, excoriated for his handling of the coronavirus. So what does he do? Well, he creates a travel ban. And you would think, wow, good. He created a travel ban. That actually makes sense. And what happens with the Democrats? House Democrats schedule vote on bill to dismantle Trump travel ban. I mean, these people, it's... And again, I'm not here to stump for Trump. I'm just looking at this. And I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. What is that on her lapel? Is that a dodo bird? Is that what that is? You see the crown? It's like wearing a crown. Is that a frog? Looks like it's a frog. Oh, I get it now. It's a frog. And there is a, what the hell is that? Why does she have a frog? A golden frog. And what is she doing here? Is she counting to 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look at this finger. Holy smokes. Man. All right. House Democrats are set to vote on dismantling President Trump's travel ban this week and rein in the executive branch's authority to declare travel restrictions. Known as the No Ban Act, the bill would reverse restrictions on the countries under the travel ban and strengthen provisions in the Immigration and Nationality Act that prohibit religious discrimination. So it's all the Muslim stuff. But it's, and so here we go. We got bans from Iran, Libya, North Korea, Somalia, Syria, Venezuela, and Yemen, because they're determined to be uncooperative. And they expanded the list to Burma, Eritrea, Kyrgyzstan, Nigeria, Sudan, and Tanzania. Okay. So they're going after that original travel ban that eventually got passed. But it will also probably, no doubt, be inclusive of any other kinds of travel bans or restrictions that Trump or his administration could put into place with countries like perhaps China, which is kind of in the air, and South Korea, and other places. So they continue to undermine the president, even though they say he's not being proactive enough. It's ridiculous. Absolutely fucking ridiculous. Now, another really interesting thing popped onto my radar screen. One of the most powerful lobbies, one of the most powerful political lobbies, is AIPAC or AIPAC, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And it is the Israeli lobby, and it is probably the most powerful lobby on K Street, which is where all the lobbying headquarters are located in Washington. And just like CPAC has their annual convention, AIPAC has their annual convention as well. Well, guess what? Guess who boycotted the AIPAC convention this year? And again, I'm not shedding any tears here, but why Democrats are finally boycotting AIPAC. Look at that. What follows is a conversation between journalists Alex Kane and Kim Brown of the Real News Network. Read a transcript. So essentially, the Democrats decided that they're not going to AIPAC this year. AIPAC is the largest official Israeli lobby group registered in the United States that holds conferences every election cycle. And it used to be a nonpartisan issue for all presidential candidates to attend and speak at these conferences, where they would usually try to outdo each other in their fanatic support for Israeli policies. But this is changing rapidly. Both Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders both announced. Why do you use both? Shouldn't it just be Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders both announced? Come on, Truth Dig. That they will not attend AIPAC's policy conferences here. AIPAC has been running attack ads against Senator Bernie Sanders because of his demand that the U.S. treat not just Israelis but Palestinians with respect. you can't treat Palestinians with respect, Bernie. Come on now. Congresswoman Betty McCollum of Minnesota's 4th District said AIPAC is a hate group. So that's a pretty significant sea change in a lot of ways, right? But they're not there. They decided that they were going to boycott AIPAC this year. Well, guess what? They had corona. There were people that tested positive for coronavirus at AIPAC, some of whom went back to Israel. Oh, the Democrats aren't there. Gee, isn't that interesting? Isn't that timely that they're not there? Yes, I understand the ideological divide. I understand that. But they're not there. Now, or they weren't there. Now, at CPAC, which is the Republican version, it's not quite AIPAC, but it's sort of the convention for conservatives and Republicans. It's a big deal. And at the CPAC convention, apparently there is somebody at CPAC who tested positive to coronavirus. And guess what they did? They were shaking the hands of Matt Gaetz and a number of the officials inside of the Trump administration. And what are we seeing now? Matt Gaetz is under a 14-day self-imposed quarantine. Ted Cruz under quarantine. This guy Gomer from Georgia under quarantine. Collins, another senator, under quarantine. So we have a number of people inside the Trump administration now, or not the administration, but people who've been at CPAC who are self-quarantining. Isn't that interesting? So we have the Democrats not going to AIPAC, the Republicans going to CPAC, CPAC having a certified corona spreader, and now these guys are having to shut down. Jackie Spear, who is a representative from the Bay Area, Jackie Spear is a really interesting character. She was Leo Ryan's secretary. They were very close. And Leo Ryan, of course, was the guy that went down to Jonestown to investigate what was happening with Jim Jones and his CIA operation down in Guyana. And Leo Ryan never made it off the runway in Guyana. He was taken out. And apparently, was Jackie Spears there? Anyway, Jackie Spears ran for Leo Ryan's vacated position. And that was back in, what was that, 1978, I believe, 1979. It was 1979. 1979, Jonestown. And she's been the representative from the Bay Area ever since. It's a long time. It's a long time. Anyway, Jackie Spear said that she was saying all the presidential candidates should suspend their ability to meet with large groups of people. That includes Joe Biden. Well, they don't really care if Joe Biden suspends his ability to meet with large groups of people, do they? Because they want to limit Joe Biden's contact. They don't want Joe Biden meeting and greeting and rubbing shoulders because of the fuck ups that will ensue as a result of that. They don't want Joe Biden to embarrass himself. They want to quarantine Joe Biden. Not officially, but unofficially quarantine him. But they want to hazmat the guy because he is a real, he's a liability. Conversely, they want to keep Trump from pressing the flesh and having these massive and very popular rallies. You see what's happening here? We're going to see a lockdown on public events and public gatherings, which means that this is going to impact Trump more than it will impact Joe Biden. In fact, they don't want Biden to be out in the public at all. They want to keep Joe Biden cryogenically suspended until whatever election may take place so they can do exactly what they did to Bernie Sanders in Massachusetts and then get Joe Biden elected. So whether or not the Democrats or the progressives or the neoliberals or, Bolshevik left versus Bolshevik right have engineered the coronavirus, clearly they're taking advantage of it. And this does seem to be the next level of the psychological operation that's connected to coronavirus. Trump has apparently suspended his physical, and who knows if Trump has the coronavirus or not. He was down at the CDC pressing flesh with the CDC. He was there last week. I'm not sure why he'd do that. Why does he just teleconference with them? I don't think it'd be that hard. These are people that have to think smarter than whoever is engaging with them or disengaging with them, whatever the premise or quote unquote narrative might be. So this is a very interesting time, but you begin to put the pieces together now, and you're seeing something begin to emerge. And the emergence of what we're seeing now is to put a tamp down and a lockdown on public gatherings, which would include things like rallies, public meetings, public events, and to be able to then control the social topography running up to an election, theoretical election in November. So what could the Republicans, not even the Republicans, but what could the Trump administration do? Well, if I was the Trump administration, what I would do is I would probably issue a national state of emergency. I would counter with a national state of emergency, and I would pretty much lock down everything. That's what I would do. And then I would use every single executive order and power at my disposal to completely eliminate the deep state. Like this would be the time to do that. And this is what I was talking about, where we're headed towards this nexus point, right? We're going to head towards this nexus point, and the nexus point is going to be a time, if this thing continues to go and develop in this kind of linear fashion, that we start here, we're going to be here, and then there's this exponential and kind of quantum reality around the spreading of the so-called coronavirus, that these are potentially inevitable outcomes. And I'm just looking at potential inevitable outcomes. So somebody is going to have to, again, take control of this narrative. Somebody's have to take control of the situation. And we've been talking about the removal of the supposed deep state for years now. And this would be one of those opportunities in order to do that. Now, there's a lot at stake here. There's a tremendous amount at stake. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, that this is really two factions that are fighting and clawing to have some level of power and control. Okay, a turf war, which is what gangs do. It's a real risk for the Democrats to move Joe Biden to the top of the food chain, the top of the pyramid here. And the risk is that he's connected to the Obama administration. And I believe that what they want to do is they want to reinsert another version of the Obama administration through Joe Biden. And they know that Bernie Sanders and his cabinet would not reflect that at all. And I don't think Obama has much respect for Bernie Sanders. Clearly, Hillary doesn't. If you saw the Hulu documentary where she bashes Bernie Sanders, she just rips him a new asshole and just said that she was a career politician that did absolutely nothing. Now, whoever this version of Hillary is, you have to admire her candor on some level, right? I think she's a Sag rising, or she's like late degree Scorpio with Jupiter and Sag in the first house at 3 degrees. Anyway, so they're going to want to reinsert the Obama administration. This is what's happening, and this is who Joe Biden would lean on. He'd bring back most of the Obama people because that's the administration that he was a part of. And then on Friday, on Sunday, we talked about Michelle Obama or somebody a part of that administration who might be Joe Biden's choice for vice president. Maybe it's Stacey Abrams, not a part of the administration, but certainly could be connected to an Obama network. And by doing that, they open themselves up. They open Joe Biden up, and they open the Obama administration up for deeper scrutiny and looking at what they did. And don't think that Trump and his team would not go there. They would. They absolutely would. And so what will happen is that it would open up the Obama administration, not just to more scrutiny, but perhaps even levels of persecution. Now, you may say, well, they both play for the same side. I'm not so sure about that. Do they make deals with each other? Of course they do. That's been going on for years. So the Democrats are taking a big risk by moving Joe Biden forward, and they're trying to ameliorate their risk by limiting public exposure to any kind of public event and the momentum that clearly Trump could gather with the re-election process. The campaign, and he's been campaigning now for the last really 6 months. While all this impeachment stuff was going on, what was Trump doing? He was campaigning. He was out doing rallies. That's exactly what he was doing. So it's going to get very interesting. Very interesting. And it's going to get down to this point where if one side feels threatened, and that their ability to move forward and cement or seal their ability to be reelected, they may take drastic measures. They may take drastic measures. I mean, I could see Trump calling a national emergency, calling the election off, and then placing himself as a de facto president until further notice. And there may be pissing and moaning and bitching and whining, but the left and the Democrats, the progressives, whoever these people are, will force his hand. And that's where we're going to get into this trust thing. That's the nexus point I'm talking about. And I think that's where this is headed because of what I'm witnessing in these events starting to constellate around this entire process that I'm talking about. It's going to get very interesting very quickly. All right, let's see where we are in Chatlandia. Let's see where we are. Bernie always gets the short stick. He does, totally. Nothing but normies taking the bait in my meeting environment. I'm probably screwed. I had to change my display name because it was considered a bad word. Are you kidding me, Tessa? It's ridiculous. 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 Why can't they use webinars? It's not like they'd miss out on anything as long as everyone is responsible and safe. Of course. Why do you think? Whatchamacallit? Whoops, where do we go here? Why do you think ridiculous? Exactly, Tessa. Some of the craziest times I've ever seen and lived through. Oh, Uncle Glenn, you haven't seen anything yet. That's right. YouTube don't know dick. Redonkulous. That's funny. Christine says, I just tell people that I married one. Married one what? I'm not sure what that means, but Christine, I'm sure it's funny. Let's see. Facebook pulled down a Biden post bumbling on his words saying, yeah, that's really interesting, JV. There was that should I play that? Maybe I should hunt that down. So you guys, I'm going to see if I can hunt that down. Give me a second here. Let me go. Hold on. I'm going to play this. There are a lot of people reporting on Joe Biden's inability to be a credible candidate, but they didn't. And there were some videos that they were able to surface. But this is not one of them that that they were referencing. In fact, you can't even find it now on YouTube. This is really interesting. Let's see. Biden, Trump. Let's do this. Yeah, you can't even find it now on YouTube. This is very interesting. So essentially what Joe, let me see if I let me go to Twitter. Maybe Twitter has. Give me 1 second. I got to find this thing now. I'm a man on a mission now. Let me go to Twitter. If you haven't seen this, it's shocking, actually. Really shocking. This gives you a sense as to the very, very deep issues that that they're dealing with Joe Biden. See if I can find this thing. Yeah, it's even hard for Twitter to surface this. You just see. Hold on. Try this one more time. Different search term. Yeah, I think this is it. Hold on. Yes. All right, I found it. And it says it's manipulated media. Bullshit. It's not manipulated media. It is not manipulated media. This is a little exclamation mark that Twitter has in connection with this. I'm going to show this to you guys. You tell me if this is manipulated media. This is why they don't want Joe Biden anywhere near a debate or anywhere near a public gathering. Hold on. I'm going to play this for you. I need to do one thing before that happens. Here we go. This is why they don't want him anywhere near any of this stuff. Here we go.
And the one about what we're for, because we cannot get reelect. We cannot win this reelection. Excuse me. We can only reelect Donald Trump and turn this primary from a campaign that's about negative attacks into one about what we're for, because we cannot get reelect. We cannot win this reelection. Excuse me. We can only reelect Donald Trump and turn this primary from a campaign that's about negative attacks into one about what we're for, because we cannot get reelect. We cannot win this reelection. Excuse me. We can only reelect Donald Trump and turn this primary from a campaign that's about negative attacks into one about what we're for, because we cannot get reelect. We cannot win this reelection. Excuse me. We can only reelect Donald Trump.
Manipulated media, huh? Yeah, right. That's what they're facing with Joe Biden. That's what they're staring down. You think they want that guy in front of crowds? You think they want that guy to face Donald Trump in a debate? No, this is a lockdown now. This is a lockdown. This is a major move. This has now moved into the territory of psychological operation and the dreaded false flag. And what's unfortunate here is that people are probably very sick, and that people are probably being taken to hospitals, being intubated for very specific reasons. Like they've had a hard time breathing because of all the fluid that apparently shows up around whatever this version of coronavirus is. So they're taking advantage. Never let a good crisis go to waste. And that's what was taken off of Facebook. They don't want that circulating. It took me a long time to actually find that. Couldn't even find it on YouTube. So that's where we are, folks. I mean, obviously there's more to this. There's huge big picture stuff. But remember, there's always more than one thing going on with all of this. More than one thing. But this is the big thing. They want to limit public exposure. They want to limit people's ability to gather together in public. As a result of that, political rallies, protests, and public meetings, they're all going to be tamped down on. And of course, that's going to affect the incumbent. All right, let me see what's going on in Chatlandia before I get out of here today. I've heard there's no fluid showing up in association with the virus. Oh, that's interesting, Danny. Faking dementia to avoid prosecution, very likely, which is another reason why we know narrative is a sham. What else do we have? It hurts my heart to see him pushed out into the public sphere. Absolutely. Online voting, no doubt. Absolutely. Check out 5G and oxygen molecules. Certainly a factor, Uncle Glenn. There was war going on in CV. At least the fear of it is the most recent weapon. Yes. Is Biden weaponized? He is certainly demoralizing. That's a really great point. You guys are so sharp. You guys are very, very sharp. And he is demoralizing. And did you see how Cory Booker and Kamala Harris just stepped right in line, calling him a great guy, and they're gonna support him. Whereas about 6 months ago, Cory Booker was questioning his mental faculties, and Kamala Harris was calling him a racist. I just don't understand how you can even support that party or any real party for that matter. I mean, the right and the Republicans, they've got their own BS going on. All right, I'm going to get on out of here, folks. Votes equals votes. Interesting. Hey, Danny, thanks for being a part of the show today. Thanks for showing up. Danny Katz in chat. You know, Danny and Emily do some good stuff together, and Danny has her own YouTube channel and does really good work as well. Check her out. Got a great chat group. Chatlandia, thank you. If you like this show and you want to support it, I do have a subscription link that'll be in the description of the show. You can get in at $5, $10, $20, and there are some benefits for everybody that gets to the $10 and $20 level. And of course, I'm still doing readings, and astrology is a great tool to understand and know, especially during these times, and what's going on in your life, whether it's relocation, whether it's vocation, whether it's alternate vocation, whether it's the psychological and spiritual conditions that are reflective in your path and your chart, your journey. They're all available through understanding your chart and where you are and some of the challenges and some of the potential openings that are available to each and every one of us, no matter what times we live in. It's still a really interesting and very valid tool for deeper discussion, exploration, and self-knowledge. With that, I wish you a very good day. Keep your immune system up. Stay healthy. Keep the clutter and the clatter and the chatter and the bullshit to a minimum. Stay focused. Stay on point. Take care of yourself. Nurture all your various bodies and the people that are in your immediate environment. Until tomorrow, I'm Robert Phoenix. This has been 15 Minutes of Flame. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay up and what's possible. Take good care.